Hello, guys. I'm here today to share with you some of my tips on how to study for your exam, for your board, for your MRI board exams. I want to share with you how I studied for my boards. I studied by myself and I used just my MRI in practice textbook. So I wanted to share with you how I did it. So I did write down some of my notes here so I don't forget some of the things that I like to share. So the first thing that I want to keep in mind is you need to study like a teacher. So what that means is when you're reading your textbook, you have to read not like somebody that's just going to go sit in class. You have to read like somebody that's actually going to teach a class. That way, when you're reading, you have to have a pen in your hand and you should be looking for good exam questions, because when you start looking for good exam questions, then it's like you're one step ahead of everybody else in class, because now you're reading, and it's not really to compete with people in class, which is not a bad thing. I think it's a good idea to compete with the best person in class. At least that's what I do, or that's what I always do. But try to find exam questions. So when you're reading your textbook or whatever book that you're reading, start to set exam questions. Okay, and then also when you read, you have to read like somebody that's going to go and teach a class. So your class will be the mirror. Your class is in your mirror. So after you read a topic, you stand in front of your class and you have to lecture the class on what you read. So you have to read it and make sure that you understand it. So in order to be able to teach your class, you have to fully understand it. So you read it and make sure you understand it before you teach, because you can't teach what you don't know, right? So the next step, or the next thing that I was doing was, um, whenever I would come again across something that I did not understand, or let me just talk about this one. Like, I read my textbook like 4 to 5 times before I took the boards. I read my textbook, my whole textbook, back to back, 4 to 5 times. The reason why I did that was because I wanted to make sure I'm familiar with everything, or that I have a basic understanding of everything in the book. So I didn't want to be like super shocked if I come across something and I don't even know what it is. At least I should be able to have an idea, you know. So it's like I read my textbook 4 to 5 times. So when you read your textbook the first time, the information will will obviously be like overwhelming. It's just a lot. But when you're reading it that first time, just trust the process. Don't give up. Don't feel bad if you're not understanding a lot of things, because the first time you will not get a lot of things, but the second time when you're reading it, then things will start to get more familiar, and by the fourth and fifth time you'll be skipping certain things, because you'll be like, you already know this, you're skipping it, and it's like you're reading faster now, because it's like now know you have an idea, or you can explain them, and you know it, you know this one, you know that one. So you're able to read through your textbook faster, and before you go to take your boards, you should be able to open page by page and be able to understand what you're saying. Like, you have to understand it. Read it, make sure you understand it before you take the boards. So the other thing that I wanted to say was, when you're reading your textbook, if you come across anything that you don't understand, underline it. That's like the first or second time when you're reading it. Underline anything that you don't understand. And when you don't understand it, the anything that you underline, you will have to go online, go to all the sources that you can find and research it. Research it, because there is a ton of free information online, like a lot of amazing information that will help you see it from another angle, because your textbook is explaining it and it does a pretty good job, but when you're reading it based on how somebody else words it, then it makes more sense, or it's going to be like, oh, okay, I see how that makes sense. So if you come across something, like, just underline it and research it until you get it. like make sure you understand it, and make sure you research anything that you have any questions for. And the last point that I want to make is when you're reading your textbook, it's so easy to get distracted by, I don't know, a bird flying outside, TV, your phone. The way to get around that, or the way that I got around that, was by scribbling. So when I'm reading my textbook, I have a paper, and it doesn't have to be a blank one, just anything. As long as you're reading and you're scribbling, your focus becomes more laser. Like, you'll be amazed, like the difference. Like, try it. Just read and just be writing nothing. Just scribble, and just try to write as if you are copying from the textbook. Because when you're reading the textbook and copying what is in the textbook, it's like you're actually repeating it, and I really don't understand why that happens like that, but whenever I read my textbook and I'm writing something down at the same time, I I fully read every sentence, and it's like my focus is just there, instead of compared to when I'm reading and I'm not really writing it down. It's just like I could skip some sentences or something for some reason. It's like I just read very I don't know, very unfocusedly. So if I'm scribbling it down, then it's like my focus is now on my pen, and it's like more laser sharp. I'm like focusing on what's in my, what's really there, what I'm really, what, like. I don't know why I can't talk. It's like it forces you to focus on what you're trying to read when you're scribbling. So those are the points. That's it. Like, you just have to read like a teacher, set the exam questions, make sure you teach your class, um, set the questions. I don't know if I said that already. Make sure you research anything that you don't understand. Go online and research it. Information is free. There's a lot of amazing free information online. Read your textbook 4 to 5 times, and make sure that you have a basic understanding of most of the concepts in your book. And I also want to say, like, there are certain things that you will have to memorize, like the cranial nerves, and find creative ways to remember your cranial nerves. For example, the way that I could remember my cranial nerves was I was doing things like, I don't know if it was this first or this one, but I would do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like, and what I'm doing is like I'm pointing to where the first one is. Like, I think, I'm not sure, but I think the first cranial nerve is the olfactory ones, and then the second one is the optic. So it's like, now I know, on our farm, Thomas thinks, something like that. So I had something, a rhyme that I would say and point to my body parts to help me to know, like, have an idea, of what each cranial nerve does and what body part that it focuses. So find your own ways to, like, make it easier, or find ways to make it fun. Like, right now I can also remember that the SARS level, like the maximum SARS level for the head, I think is 3. And the way I know that is 3 is that I always thought of the ears like number 3. So I know that when it comes to the head, the SARS level is 3. I remember that. And I think for the hands, I don't know if it's 4 or 5, but just find ways. Like, there are definitely like fun ways that you can come up with to make it easier to remember certain things. So that's what I did, and it worked. And for my boards, when I took it the first time, and I had a score of 81. And I feel like I could have had a higher score than that if I had reviewed my anatomy. I did not review it. Like, I put that as the last thing to go over, because I was saying I would use just what I know from X-ray to go and take the boards, but that is not enough, because in MRI it's more like muscle stuff. So you have to know the muscles, the different muscles. You have to know blood vessels. Um, like, it's just a little bit more, and I did let that go. So I did have my lowest score on anatomy because I was slacking on that. I feel like I could have had a higher score, but I'm not complaining. But I'm just saying that's what happened in my case, and that's the score that I had. And I feel like if you use this method and you go into your boards, feeling like you have a good idea, of the concepts in your textbook, there's a very, very high chance that you will pass the boards. Very high chance. I think so. At least it worked for me. So I wish everybody out there the best if you're trying to take your boards. And I feel like this can work for any exam, not just MRI. So there. Thanks. Bye.